So why'd you leave Boston?
I've been on quite the adventure, little brother.
I reckon it's got something to do with that girl.
It's got everything to do with that little girl.
You know, I've never been this close. It's the outside.
So is that everything you hoped for?
Can't be any worse out there. Can it?
Once upon a time, I had somebody that I cared about. And in this world, that's good for one thing. Get you killed.
I can take care of myself.
How many close calls have we had?
I get into trouble down there. You make every shot count.
I got this.
Hope you know how to use that thing.
I've had some practice.
I do not know if there could be any more to add to illustrate the legacy that is The Last of Us. I use the word legacy for a couple of reasons. It is one of the most successful video games of all time. It has been praised as one of the greatest stories told in video games. It is one of the most influential video games in gaming history, and as recently seen, translated into one of the best video game adaptations. This is because The Last of Us does have an incredible story. Set in a post-apocalyptic world filled with compelling characters, demonstrated through engaging gameplay and emotional cutscenes. Since the game's initial release back in 2013, there had been hundreds of articles and videos dedicated to what The Last of Us means to their fanbase. And it is about time I make my contribution. This video will be unlike my earlier videos. In fact, this will be my most personal video by far. A love letter of sorts to the studio Naughty Dog. Instead of reviewing the game, I will be exploring in great depth what and why The Last of Us means a lot to me. If you want to hear my take on part 2, link is in the description below. Without further ado, this is my tribute to The Last of Us. To start things off, I should probably clarify on why I have decided to make this video about The Last of Us right now. For years, I had been highly recommending this game since I first finished playing. I have had many thoughts over the years and engaged in many conversations. I considered 2023 to have been the perfect year to upload this video. The game was celebrating its 10th anniversary, and the first season of the HBO series was streamed to the world. Which, by the way, quick little review, I absolutely loved it. As of recording, I am highly anticipating its second season, curious and keen as to how certain events will be portrayed. Anyway, 2023 would have been appropriate to release something. September 26 has become known as The Last of Us Day, the date in-game the cordyceps outbreak began. But more importantly for me, it was 10 years ago today I had played the game for the first time, which I will go into more detail later. Apart from just starting my YouTube channel this year, sharing videos on games that I enjoy, I could not stop talking about The Last of Us. It had taken me a long time to gather my thoughts and put them into words. I wanted to be sure that I do this game justice. This video game holds a very special place in my heart. To give better context, I have played through The Last of Us 5 times. A 6th playthrough recently on the PlayStation 5 remake footage that takes up most of this video. I had completed the game on its range on difficulties. I had watched behind the scenes documentaries. I had listened to many interviews, and I had been keeping up with social media announcements, wondering when a part 3 will happen. But for the most part, I had been watching other videos, specifically critical analysis and reviews from fans. Whether one loved or hated The Last of Us, it thrills me to see the flood of responses to this game. To break this video down, I will be exploring 4 key components on what makes this game so special to me.
Infected. I can take care of myself.
How many close calls have we had?
Well, we seem to be doing all right so far.
And now you'll be doing even better with Tommy.
I draw your attention to a YouTube channel, Game Overload. It is an incredible channel which I highly recommend you check out. Filled with well-defined video essays on video games, it has terrific content. One of them, examining The Last of Us, was one of many that inspired me to also create videos on games I love. One thing that stood out to me on his video about The Last of Us was the concept of connection. The relationship between main characters Joel and Ellie immediately came to mind as the most obvious connection. It was, in my opinion, the most memorable dynamic portrayed in a video game. Their growing, often complicated relationship carried the story, and thus became the story. I could go into more detail about what the game does to illustrate this, but many other video essays have thoroughly explained it better, some that I have provided links below. What I can say that deeply resonates with me is how the concept of connection between the characters echoed my relationships with others. The Last of Us evolved from a journey of survival to an exploration of human relationships. Joel and Ellie would eventually build a father-daughter relationship. Witnessing the growth during gameplay helped build a new connection with my dad. Sadly, he tragically passed in 2018, and one of the fondest memories I shared with him was sharing video games, particularly narrative-driven, partnered with visually stunning graphics and well-written characters, which The Last of Us exactly was. Thankfully, it was a happy and healthy relationship, and this game brought us closer. My dad shared his favorite films with me. We would be talking for hours on what was great about that film. The same was said about video games. Initially, my dad was not into games, but it was not until he started watching cinematics he became curiously engaged. He was not only fascinated by the performances, but the realistic gameplay graphics. He even questioned whether the characters were real actors until revealing they were motion captured. This is credit to the incredible actors, but more importantly, the artists and animators at Naughty Dog for bringing these characters to life. Long story short, The Last of Us connected my dad and I to the point of welcoming other games, such as Red Dead Redemption and Uncharted, for similar reasons. It had created a connection on another level I am satisfied video games was able to reach. Video games have their ways of bringing people together, whether in the competitive space with the likes of sporting or party games such as FIFA or Mario Party. Narrative games often feel more like a movie than a video game, and that was the case with The Last of Us. It encouraged viewers who have no experience playing appreciated the cutscenes alone. Unless one had decided to watch the incredible HBO series, which remained faithful to the source material, many gameplay moments were just as cinematic. such as reading handwritten letters or exciting combat gameplay. The intelligent AI reactions and optional conversations unveiled more story within this desolate world. When combat happened, decisions had to be made, from utilizing resources to stealthing around enemies. Like with criticizing a film or nitpicking the finer details, the overarching story of The Last of Us is the element most talked about, particularly that infamous cliffhanger ending. Another dimension of connection I wanted to touch on was within the gaming community. In many ways, for better or worse, The Last of Us had an effect of bringing gamers together. Now, a lot can be said about how the internet can sometimes bring out the worst of people, often hurtful, but what cannot be overlooked is behind most screens are a community of genuinely good people. There are artists who were inspired by The Last of Us. They have created their own art to pay tribute to a game that means a great deal to them. I had been fortunate to have met many wonderful people over the years and listened to their stories on The Last of Us. Whether we agreed or disagreed on our opinions, the game still had a remarkable effect on bringing people together and engage in many conversations. That goes without saying that The Last of Us had raised debatable conversations. Joel's act by the end of the game was the most talked about, sacrificing many to save the few. Also considering Ellie's perspective, the purpose of one's life, particularly if it would mean for the greater good. What would one do to survive in a post-apocalyptic world? How far would one go to protect the ones they love? These are among many topics that could bring people together and have those challenging conversations. It is encouraging to discuss all points of view. This demonstrates the power of what a great game, movie, TV show, or work of art can do. It is the best to do something that leaves an impression that will get many people talking. And that was why The Last of Us is still talked about to this day. The word of mouth eventually led to making The Last of Us reach a wider audience than expected. In my view, Naughty Dog may have not expected the successful response the game received when it did. But of course, there was indeed something special to be told. This was a group of talented artists collaborating to create a memorable gaming experience. It had left a great mark in the gaming industry, open to many interpretations and open-ended discussions to last for a long, long time. It is no surprise at this point that the story of The Last of Us was a definitive element of the game. Video games have their unique ways of telling stories, whether figuratively or literally. It comes down to presentation. To be clear, The Last of Us was not the first video game to do this. Video games have been telling incredible stories over the years, such as Red Dead Redemption, BioShock, Heavy Rain, Uncharted, and so on. What makes The Last of Us unique, at least in my view, elevated storytelling in video games to a mainstream audience unlike any other. This game propelled me to play more games like this. Game Overload perfectly described in his video that games require active participation compared to watching a film, often described as a passive experience. As a game player, stories are intertwined gameplay, particularly narrative-driven, where players will have to make choices. Those choices may determine the outcome of the story for better or worse. Compared to film, the choices are presented to their audiences and often one consequence is shown. Strangely, I viewed The Last of Us categorized in both circumstances. It is foremost a video game. The player does make choices, such as deciding what weapon to use in combat, what resources to use to survive, go guns blazing, or stealth by the infected. But when the game takes a moment to breathe, the player becomes the viewer, gaining insight into the minds of the characters. Story-driven games are my favorite genre to play. While some games, including Persona 5 and Final Fantasy 16, with their extended gameplay time may not appeal to many players, if their story is told well, it makes the gaming experience all the more thrilling and exciting. It becomes heavily investing to play through the game to find out what will happen next to the characters. To be able to spend as much time in a world filled with captivating characters leaves the overall experience an impressionable one, and more especially, money and time worth spent on a video game. And this was exactly what The Last of Us did for me. Though not like the Japanese role-playing games, where branching storylines take place through side missions, The Last of Us has a beginning, middle, and end. The gameplay journey became the story. Little moments in between deepened and enriched the experience, such as the optional conversations and picking up items. It was a matter of time that a cinematic game such as The Last of Us would eventually find its way to another screen. I had been wanting to share this game with others who are not gamers and spend too many hours to approach key story moments. There had been a stained reputation on the failed attempts to adapt video games into a different entertainment format, with few finding little success. Thankfully, I was very pleased with what HBO did. Not only faithful to the source material, but exceeded my expectations. The construct of episodes were as I had hoped The Last of Us to be. I am also grateful they were extended episodes. The story, the characters, and the world was so rich that enough screen time introduced new viewers on the hype of this anticipated release. The Last of Us achieved that I nervously wondered it could achieve if it became successful, introducing incredible stories as told through the realm of video games. From the opening cutscene alone, the character performances immediately gripped me. Transitioning between character gameplay and beautifully animated cutscenes looked seamless. A big shout out to the team at Naughty Dog. All of the artists, crew, and actors collaborated to make what I believe is a great work of art. The characters of Joel and Ellie, brought to life by Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson respectively. Their memorable performances were complemented by a well-written script, simple but with a lot of complexity. The chemistry between the two leads was evidently strong. Every dialogue shared between them strengthened their relationship from strangers to family. Watching and rewatching behind-the-scenes content further highlighted how much was put into the story of The Last of Us. Through rewriting processes and technical challenges, it was clear there was a lot of love and care bringing the beauty of The Last of Us to light. The Last of Us got me back into playing video games again. I may have mentioned a few times in my past videos, I describe myself as a casual player. I am not always up to date with the latest releases, nor do I even have the time to play video games due to a busy lifestyle. And that is fine with me. I play video games to either escape reality, relax, or just have a good time. The Last of Us did all of those things for me. I finished the game so quickly because of how captivating of an experience it was. I finished my first playthrough in just 3 days. In just under 20 hours, I had never completed a game so quickly in such a short period of time. It was also worth my money spent. I had replayed this game so many times that it did not bother me to repurchase its remastered and remake versions. To get to re-experience this beloved game on the latest hardware made me feel like I was playing it again for the first time, which was wonderful. Playing The Last of Us reignited a part of my personality and helped shape me the person that I am today. The narrative genre opened doors to playing similar games. As video games can be an expensive hobby to get into, I view it as if I was streaming a television series or watching movies. Growing up, I have had many conversations with people questioning my interest or the appeal of playing video games. The way I viewed those questions came from people who have not played video games, nor are open to understand how effective they can be, in some positive ways, I might add. Video games are often scrutinized for their negative influences, but the same argument could be said for film or television. While video games are engaging and interactive, there are always going to be opinions. Every piece of entertainment has their target audience, and if it achieves what it sets to achieve, such as tell a good story, demonstrates intricate themes, and provide a means of escape, that's enough. Everyone is entitled to their opinion on how they view entertainment. This is how I feel about video games. Not every genre would appeal to every player. It is incredible to know, like with movies and television, there is something for everyone to enjoy. That being said, The Last of Us is a violent game. It is, after all, about surviving in a post-apocalyptic world overrun by the infected, designed as the most horrifying creatures ever seen. The graphic violence cannot be overlooked when gameplay is also required to reach important story moments. From fighting between infected and surviving humans, these encounters can be uncomfortable and confronting. In saying that, it surprised me that there was also a lot of light-hearted moments in The Last of Us. As the Fireflies say, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light. Underneath the dark tone, violent content, and grim atmosphere, there was so much beauty and heart in this game. Ellie's curious nature and her joke book was perfectly balanced among the thrilling combat. The game knew when it needed to slow down, exploring empty towns and cities overrun by nature were just as beautiful as the exchanges between Joel and Ellie. Both the visuals and the writing provided enough information of the world around them, their personalities and their inner thoughts, whether spoken out loud or not. This is perhaps the most important component of why The Last of Us is such a special game to me. I wanted to make this point a bookend because it is the most personal. To give you some perspective, allow me to briefly take you back in time. 10 years ago, it was the year 2014. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. After 3 weeks in the hospital, I was bedridden for 2 months at home to recover. During that time, I was terrified and shaken by how fragile life was by this sudden change in my health. Loneliness and depression soon followed at the uncertainty of how completely changed my life had been. Playing video games had not only helped me escape that dark reality, but it also healed me. I was thankful to have still had my PlayStation 3. after giving into the hype, I decided to play The Last of Us. I had only heard great things about the game through word of mouth. I was already a fan of Naughty Dog, having played the Uncharted series. But interestingly, I had seen little marketing of The Last of Us. Little did I realize how much this game was going to change me. The themes of love, hope, and survival helped me cope with the challenges that came with my recent diagnosis. It gave me the perspective that if Joel and Ellie could outlast in the post-apocalyptic world, I too could also endure and survive whatever challenges my condition threw at me. It is fair to say that in my view, The Last of Us on some level saved my life. Maybe an overly dramatic and corny statement, but it had been a secret I hold dearly until now. But given it had been 10 years since I first played this game at a difficult time in my life, it makes more sense to present my thoughts in no better way but here. The fact that I'm still alive and going strong, expressing on this platform of all places what this game means to me, says a lot of what the lasting legacy The Last of Us has had on many fans alike. Additionally, I had only started creating this YouTube channel near the end of 2023. If I were to make a video about a game I love, the timing, for me, could not be more perfect. Video games are a part of who I am and helped me shape the person I am proud of today. The videos I upload are a window into my personality, but more importantly, they are expressions of my experiences. These past videos and in the future will be about games I have enjoyed playing and would highly recommend to non-gamers. And I cannot recommend The Last of Us any further. I am pleasantly satisfied that the HBO series was successful. I must applaud everyone, the actors and the crew. It was evident that the series was put together by artists who love the game as much as I do. Watching behind the scenes footage got me excited that new audiences will witness this rich story on a different scale. As of recording, I am counting down to the day Season 2 is released. When Season 1 was on the horizon, I made a promise to myself. If the first season did the first game justice, I will get myself a tattoo of the game. And as clearly evident, I am proud to wear this mark as a hopeful reminder. The same could be said if the second season delivers and hopefully exceeds. Well, only time will tell. So to wrap up what was perhaps the most emotional video I had ever created, I do want to take the time to thank the team at Naughty Dog. What everyone did to bring The Last of Us to the world, I am grateful for all the hard work that has truly paid off. Many interviews starring the creators and actors had heard the voices of fans expressing what the game means to them, and this is just among them. The Last of Us explored the importance of human connections, both on and off screen, elevated the art of storytelling through a modern medium, broadened a catalogue of games, and on a deeper level got me to appreciate my hobbies, my relationships with others, and my perspectives on life itself. I do not think there has been anything, video game or not, that have had an effect on me the way The Last of Us did. Until the next great thing comes along, I will always say The Last of Us is my favorite video game of all time. Thank you everyone for taking the time to watch this video. I know it was a long one, but I wanted to do this game justice because of how much it means to me. I have thoroughly enjoyed making this video, and I look forward to making many more like this. The Last of Us Part 1 is now available to play on the PlayStation 5. If you had played the game, Please feel free to share experiences in the comments section below. I like to hear your stories and perspectives playing this game. If you like this video, please check out my channel for more. This is Pearl, signing out. Endure and survive.